Hello everybody and welcome back. It's good to talk to all of you and welcome to the very first episode of Public Test Server Talks. And here basically what's going to happen is I'm going to go try out the public test server and then identify some of the major things that changed and then basically talk about how they might impact the game. And so without much further hesitation, let's talk about patch 0.5.5 that's currently out on the public test server. And of course the first thing is New York is in the middle of the day now, apparently, and it looks quite nice. It's not like the night mode, but daytime is fine. The first thing I noticed today was, oh boy, look! The AA has returned to its glorious form. I mean, you know, ships are spewing rounds into the air now. This is such a beautiful thing, and I'm very, very glad it's come back. Of course, the next thing I got to talk about is, of course, weather. Weather has been implemented into World of Warships, and weather in the non-battle sense, just the cosmetic one, is beautiful. I mean, the rain is coming down, it's landing on the decks of your ship, and you see little pools of water pooling on your decks. Sometimes you start a battle and it's foggy and rainy like this, and it really, really sets that amazing sort of atmosphere that you're in the real world and that you're engaging in an epic naval battle where it's the real world, the weather's coming down, and it just looks really, really awesome. And I do have to give Wargaming a big round of applause for implementing at least the cosmetic weather for now. I'll talk about the battle weather in a little bit. The cosmetic weather is beautiful. And as you can tell, it really sets that mood for the naval battle. Now, Wargaming did this beautifully, but there is one little thing that I had to complain about today, which is take a look at this particular battle. Look at the weather. The rain is just pouring. The sky is dark. I am seriously ready for a totally epic naval clash in this kind of weather. Now, this weather in this particular map doesn't actually impact detection or anything like that, but you just started off and it's this beautiful, beautiful weather that you see, and you're just like, all right, I'm ready for this. Let's go. And then you start sailing, and very soon you start to go, sky isn't so dark anymore. The rain doesn't feel as heavy. What's going on here? And well, what you'll see in like maybe another, I guess, 30 seconds or so is that the weather sort of disappears. And this is my one big complaint. It's that the weather is so beautiful. I would like to keep it for like the entire battle. Let me actually fight an entire battle with that sort of fog and rain, or, you know, of course, clear day, or night and rain, or something. Like, you know, give me all these various combinations. It would be awesome. Don't have it where it's like I spawned in and this, you know, the sky was all super dark, it's raining and pouring, and within like 2 minutes of me leaving my spawn area, it's like, ta-da, clear as day, nothing's happening, weather's perfect. It's just, I wish we could get the whole thing. But anyways, alright, but of course I've got to talk about this. North is the first map, and currently the only map, that has dynamic weather. Sometime during this battle, a little line popped up on my screen, and it said, you know, there is an approaching cyclone. This I really, really like. So what it says is that when the weather comes in, and it blows in slowly, it's not like immediate, the weather slowly comes in, and when the weather comes in, visibility drops down to 8 kilometers. I haven't fully thought about the tactical issues with regards to this weather yet, although I'll sort of talk about it a little bit later when I talk about Japanese destroyer torpedoes, the new ones. But it immediately changes, you know, the battle dynamic. Let's say you were in a battleship and you were sniping from a little bit further back. All of a sudden, it takes away, let's say, your long-range abilities to snipe. Now, you've got to really, really quickly sit there and rethink, what am I going to do now? If I'm not shooting, can I tactically relocate to a different position? Let's say you're playing as a Japanese cruiser, and for the longest time, maybe you didn't use your torpedoes. Maybe you haven't launched a torpedo attack. Maybe when the weather comes in, that's the perfect opportunity. Now you strike where it hurts. I just feel like weather, this dynamic weather, where it comes in and affects gameplay, can really present so many different things in the game. Like, it can change a whole bunch of different things to make it more interesting. It's just, this is something that I remember asking for, and I'm like, you guys should make the battles more dynamic. There needs to be something else, because unlike World of Tanks, we don't have bushes and we don't have those kinds of things. It would be nice if we got something that was all of a sudden like, okay, now you got to quickly rethink things and be flexible and adapt. And I feel like this weather effect, if implemented in different ways, can really provide that. And so, this is something I'm really, really a fan of. Not only that, but the visual effects. A couple minutes ago, I think maybe 2 minutes ago, it was like clear, and this weather blows in, and you'll see it's not just rain, it's like rain and fog, and visibility really starts to take a hit. Like, there was a Hatsuharu, I think I started engaging a little bit, although by this point, by the way, the battle was completely lost. But I was engaging a Hatsuharu, and the Hatsuharu is like 5 kilometers away. And you'll see that a gray Hatsuharu in the fog, it's really not that easy to actually see the full outline of the ship. Like, you can still see it, but it's not as clear as if it was in the daytime. And shooting becomes a little bit more challenging, and I like it. It presents those unique challenges that I think should exist in World of Warships. It shouldn't just be always perfect conditions, clear days, or always, this is great. I love it. One final thing that I want to talk about, which is, and this is not really related to weather, it has something to do with the way that Wargaming has sort of structured the public test, is Wargaming. I would really love to test this particular map more, just this dynamic weather, and give better feedback, but out of, I think, something like 15 battles or something that I played today, I got this map once. And it's really hard to think about, like, what the new strategies and whatnot for this kind of mode when you don't really see it that often. Like, this was my only battle of the day, and I nearly gave up on trying to get any footage. This was literally on like the last battle of the day, and I was like, all right, just one more, I'll give it a try and see what happens. And like, I finally got it. I was just like, oh my god, I gotta record everything. And I just wish that on the public test that we could get certain maps maybe on a slightly more frequent basis so we can try it out. But still, regardless, it's great. I just love dynamic weather. Like, it just adds a whole new layer to the game, and I think it's such a sorely needed thing right now. A little bit more complexity to add that extra flavor and taste to your battles. Next up, let's talk about carriers, because carriers, especially the higher tiers, have had something new added, and that being the defensive AA fire consumable. First things first, yes! This is something that I think I've been asking for a very, very long time. I mean, I think I've been asking since maybe the open beta phase, maybe even before that, maybe closed beta. I think that's the first time I asked for something like that. And I said, basically, it's good to give CVs just like one charge of defensive AA fire so that they can repel attacks on them at the beginning so they don't get sniped, so that the CV can last a little bit longer. And here we go. We got defensive fire. It's like, yes, that's great. One tiny problem about the defensive fire, it lasts way too long. Like, I've already sent that feedback back to the devs. It's just too long. 2 whole minutes of defensive fire, I thought, is just a little bit excessive. I'm hoping to see eventually this number come down to maybe like 40 seconds. And maybe the US has a slight advantage by having slightly longer duration. Maybe that's where the difference could be. Because as of right now, both the US and the Japanese one lasts 2 whole minutes. And the Japanese one actually does more in terms of, the multipliers higher. It's 75% increase versus 25% for the US. So it appears the Japanese, for now, have the AA advantage. Although, I do have to point out, the US has always had that A advantage. So I'm thinking what's going on here is sort of like when they took away one of the Midway's torpedo bomber squadrons. Initially, it was a horrible change because nothing was given back. And then later on, we found out, oh, look, the Midway got 1,000-pound bombs. There's a possibility, I'm guessing, that the reason why the Japanese got something that's stronger now is because something else is going to come to balance it out as well. I don't know. It's a guess because of how they did the Midway, but it's a potential, to explain why the 75-25% thing happened. What else did I want to talk about? Oh yeah, one big thing that I've got to talk about this particular carrier defensive fire consumable. Okay, yes, I know it's switched to destroyers on the screen, but I'll keep talking about carriers for another minute. Is that the carrier defensive AA fire isn't like the cruiser one at all. The cruiser one affects large caliber guns. And the carrier one doesn't. The carrier one is very much a point defense, uh, defensive AA fire. It only affects the medium and small caliber AA, which, if you know how the ranges work, it's not a very big range. And not a lot of carriers are going to be willing to sacrifice modules and skills for their aircraft to buff up the AA. So this is really something that's only for the carrier to defend itself against a strike by disrupting the strikes and making the spread fan out in a cone. All right, so that's something I really like, by the way. And by the way, everything I've talked about so far, the happiest thing for me with regards to this patch is the fact that this patch shows definitively that Wargaming is actually listening to the feedback given about World of Warships, because I've sent feedback back and I've said, I've asked for things like weather, I've asked for things like, the defensive AA fire consumable, just one of them, for CVs to prevent first snipe, and these things are coming. So, for me, I think that's just, proof that they are listening, and I'm really happy, which means I will be bombarding them with more things. All right, okay. Anyways, moving on to destroyers. Japanese destroyers, really big changes. The whole torpedo wall spam, I think, has gotten to a point of being just a little bit silly. So there's been changes, and these changes are actually really good. And probably for the first time in a very, very long time, I had fun in higher tier Japanese destroyers, because they have that, like a long time ago for me, the Japanese destroyer to me was that sort of very, very stealthy ninja assassin, pop up and just absolutely decimate you. And what ended up happening is that the meta sort of changed, and we got these long range spammy Japanese destroyers at high tier, and it's just torpedo wall after torpedo wall, and that's all you saw. These new torpedoes give the Japanese destroyer back that particular role, that ninja assassin that comes out and just devastates you with torpedoes. And the reason they can do that is because these torpedoes are ludicrously fast. I mean, in one battle, and this, think about it this way, I had a Kagero, I was playing Kagero, and I equipped it with the new F3 torpedoes, which went 76 knots to 8 kilometers. And what I did is I put torp acceleration on to that Kagero, which gave me 81 knot torpedoes. They only went out to 6.4 kilometers, I think, but they did 20,000+ damage. The Kagero has a stealth rating of 5.4 kilometers if you max it out for concealment, which means there's a little bit of a stealth torping barrier. Now, instead of packing smoke, which is sort of the usual thing to do, I packed the torpedo reload booster, and it was just awesome. Found an Izumo, and the Izumo was coming towards me bow on, so I fired some torpedoes at it head on, and the Izumo saw the torpedoes, reacted by turning away, took I think only one torpedo, but as soon as I fired that salvo, I hit that reload booster thing, and my cooldown was 30 seconds, and then the Izumo spotted me. He started firing at me, but in no time at all, my torpedoes reloaded, and I shot out another salvo, and there was nothing that Izumo could do. From 4-kilometer range, because I'd already been spotted, 81 knot torpedoes closed that range in fractions of just no time at all, and just slammed it. Most satisfying feeling ever. And with the Fubuki there, I played a very, very similar style as well. Boosted the 10-kilometer, I think 67 knot torpedoes to 72 knot 8 kilometers, and you became that ninja assassin again. Also, I can't wait to see how those Japanese destroyers with these new fast torpedoes that are these ninja assassin ambush destroyers again, how they would interact with that dynamic weather on North. I feel like those two could be a really lethal combination if the Japanese DD player figures out how to use that weather to his advantage. All right, one other thing. We have a bunch of crosshairs and reticles now, however you want to call those. There's 9 types of static reticules, and there's one dynamic one. The one that we have right now in patch 0.5.4 is the type 3 one. So if you want to stick to the one we have, stick with type 3. If you want to change it up to the dynamic ones, go for it. They're all, I think, usable. You just got to find out what it means for you and what works for you. The next 2 changes are graphical changes. The first is when you fire your guns and you follow your shells, you actually see shells. This is awesome. You actually feel like you're firing real ordnance for once. And on the receiving end, you'll see these same sort of lines of light coming towards you until like the last second, and you actually see the shells hitting your ship. It's beautiful and it's great. And then, of course, finally, there's the new sinking animations. There are a whole bunch of new ones. Take a look at this one. I got hit on the starboard side by torpedo bombers, and I am going to flood basically in that direction. That's my death animation. I'm going to flood, and I'm going to turn over in that direction, and it's a very awesome sight to see. All in all, patch 0.5.5 is quite honestly one of the best patches that Wargaming has done in recent memory. This is a patch that has a lot of things that the community asked for and has been asking for quite a while, and I'm happy to see that they've listened and they've implemented it. Now, it's not going to be perfect on the first go. There's going to be adjustments made, like for example the CV and the defensive AA fire. It's too long. I think that they'll make changes to that, but I'm just really happy to see that this is just a solid, good patch all the way around, and that the things that they bring to the table just add so much to the game, instead of being like some of the other patches where it's like, oh look, there's one good thing and holy crap, there's like 5 or 6 other things that are now just not as good or needs to be changed or whatnot. And so this is like one of those patches that I'm actually really, really happy with. And by the way, watching your ship sink slowly is quite the experience. Like, you just watch the slow death of your ship as she slips beautifully under the waters, and you cry a couple of tears as your beautiful ship disappears and puffs of water come out, and you're just like, it's underwater now. Oh yeah, right. One more thing, Wargaming. You have to find a way to get rid of this sound. Listen to this. Heavy damage. Stop with the ear-ringing, heart-pounding sound. Like, I think everybody is like has complained about it. Change it to something else, please. I beg of you. Like, pretty please. I mean, heck, I would just be perfectly happy if you had like an announcer go, "Sir, we have taken critical damage," or "Sir, we have taken heavy damage." Like, that would be better than that, like, that sound drives me freaking insane. And like, it used to be the Citadel sound, now it's the heavy damage sound, which I literally hear like multiple times per game, and it's driving me insane. Alright, please, Wargaming, just like change that. I like beg you. And of course, this final little bit, which is a fly through, or sort of a fly through, or my attempt at flying through one of the new maps. It's a really pretty map, and yeah, take a look. It's a really nice, pretty map. Looking forward to seeing the other one as well. The other new map I didn't actually get to see today, but this one I saw, and I was quite happy with it, although it does feel a little bit heavy on the destroyer meta, because there's a lot of little islands on both sides, and I didn't really see a lot of space for battleships on this particular map the one time I played it, so maybe some adjustments to be made. Anyways, but yeah, these are like the main things for that I've seen today on the public test for patch 0.5.5. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've actually played on the public test, and you know what you experienced and what you liked and what you didn't like. Let me know in the comment section below. Aside from all that, you all have a very, very good day, and I'm looking forward to talking to all of you again soon.